This is the Turf Zone Podcast, your central information and news hub, bringing together professionals from turf associations across multiple states to share things to help you in your business. Brought to you in partnership with our friends at the Virginia Turfgrass Council. This episode is sponsored in part by Sod, world-class service on demand. Visit us online at www.buysod.com. Now, let's get in the zone.
Welcome to the Turf Zone. In this episode of Virginia Turfgrass, we're talking to Ray Funkhouser, VTC board member. Welcome, Ray. How are you today?
Very good, thank you.
Well, first of all, thanks for taking some time to chat with us for this podcast episode. And let's jump right in and talk about your work in the turfgrass industry. We know you're retired now, but tell me a little bit about your job in the past and how you got to where you are now, happily retired and living the good life.
I came into the turf industry about halfway through my professional career. My entire career has been involved with particularly the crop protection chemical side, of the business, and started off on the agricultural side, working with a number of crops, starting off with the fruit crops here in Virginia and moving over to a lot of the agronomic crops. Then had the opportunity to move over to the specialty, which included turf, which was always an area of interest for me. So half of my career was spent specifically in the turf side, the turf management side.
So how big of a change was that to go from the agricultural side and move into turfgrass?
Very easy to do. It's kind of a natural transition because there's so many similarities, between the two. We're dealing with plants. We're dealing with a lot of, botany and how plants grow, how they function, how they thrive, and the threats that can attack them. So it's really dealing with just a little bit of a different crop of what the end result of what you're trying to accomplish. But many of the techniques are very, very similar. Then you combine that with the fact that a lot of the chemistries we use on both sides are the same chemistries. So understanding mode of actions, and also weed life cycles are very similar for both the agricultural side and the turf side. It's just getting to know very specifically what you're dealing with and what end result are you trying to obtain.
Definitely. Where did you start with your education? What made you decide to go into this field, and what route did you take from there?
I want to say I've been very blessed in my career that I had exposure to a number of areas which truly led to where I ended up. When I was coming out of high school, I knew I wanted to have a career in science. I wanted to have a job where I could be using science on a daily basis, and particularly on the plant side. Grew up, I was one generation removed from the farm that my father grew up on, but we went back to that family farm often, so I was surrounded by a lot of agriculture, and I liked that area. So I decided to go to, at the time, it was called Delaware Valley College, which is now Delaware Valley University. I was originally accepted as a horticulture major, but I knew I needed to go on and get an advanced degree. And in talking to some people that had gone before me, they mentioned about the amount of chemistry that was needed when you went into the graduate programs, and some of them had to make up chemistry courses later. So I changed my major to biology just because looking at the curriculum, I felt I was going to be better prepared for going on for graduate study with all the courses, and I wouldn't have to so-called make up any weak areas, which in fact was the case when I went on to graduate school. I was the only one in the group that I came in with that wasn't lacking in one of the science areas that had to take some undergraduate classes to kind of get caught up. But specifically getting into the agricultural crop protection area, I was very fortunate in that at the end of my freshman year in college, and we had to work a total of 20 weeks during our time at the school to graduate in some area related to what we were majoring in. And I was very, very fortunate to get a internship at American Cyanamid. They had a big agricultural research farm in Princeton, New Jersey. They gave out some internships, for college students, and I was able to get one. And I worked that summer in the insecticide screening department. So I really got to see the basics for, how products are found, how they're screened for, and what the process was of seeing some of those compounds move on later, and how few of them actually make it to the marketplace. But it was exciting because I was in the industry and saw some numbered compounds there that years later, actually, I saw make it to the marketplace as commercial products. So that kind of gave me my first intro to it. And I also had a couple summer jobs through college where I worked at a nursery, and that was really learning some of the agronomic. I spent the summer on a cultivator, basically, and got to see a lot of the different aspects of the nursery industry. And then another summer, I was with the U.S. Forest Service working on a gypsy moth research project. That was the USDA project. It was based out of Cornell University, and I was stationed in the field where we were gathering tremendous amounts of data on the gypsy moth. And this was back in the early 70s when it was really starting to be a problem. And the aim of the project was to try to determine where the outbreaks would be so they could, do control measures in those very, very targeted areas. So I was very fortunate coming out of college to have had some experience in the industry.
That's amazing. That's a very well-rounded set of jobs and internships and educational opportunities. I think that ties in so well now with new turfgrass managers coming into the industry. How would you advise new turfgrass managers on getting all that information, and anybody in the field actually, on how to get their feet wet in all of the areas that are necessary to be in this field?
Don't limit yourself, to one particular idea or image that you may have of what you want to do. Be open for opportunities that may arise and you may have to take advantage of to learn as much about all different aspects of it. I've run across many people. In fact, most people, when they settle into one part of their career or the main part of their career where they spend most of their years, that was not where they started. That was not where, they thought they wanted to be. But they looked at opportunities and just learning as much as they could about the different aspects of it, whether it's, the agronomic end of it, whether it's the, the equipment end of it, whether it's just even weather conditions. There are many different areas, and as much information, particularly when you're around people that have expertise in many different areas, as I say, just soak up as much information as you can from them. And like I said, you never know what door may open for you that can be very, very gratifying to you.
Definitely. And that ties in so well to the importance of industry associations, for example, the VTC. You've had a lot of time volunteering your expertise and your time for industry associations. Can you tell me why that's so important to you and what your experience has been with that?
Well, I don't necessarily look at it as volunteering as it is in investing. I think it's an investment in your career, and it's also an investment for the industry. There are a lot of things that need to happen for an industry to grow and survive. And it's when people come together and invest their time, efforts, and talents for the good of everyone is how an industry grows and moves ahead. I was very fortunate in my first job that I had in the industry that the boss that I had that hired me felt very strongly about that you needed to be active in there and give that time that may not be in your exact job description, to be able to, to thrive. And it also, I think, helps you professionally to get to know more people in the industry, because that's also where you're going to meet people that have different ideas, that they have different perspectives, on where they're coming in the industry, and you learn about a lot of the needs of people in the industry from a different perspective that you may not see if you just stuck to your very strict job on a day-to-day basis. Plus, you make a lot of good contacts in the industry, contacts that you get to know, so that many times questions may come up in an area that you may not be familiar with or have an expertise in, but you have a level of confidence because you've met people through industry contacts and through your activities in the associations that you can call up, and they can very often help you through some challenges you may have, and some difficulties and things that will help us all. But the industry, is under threats at times, and this is nothing new. It's really been going on since the beginning of the industry. So it's very important that the industry is aware of that and can work together for the betterment of all.
Definitely. That brings me to some of our current challenges are definitely misperceptions about a lot of elements of turfgrass management. And I know that has been first and foremost topic that the VTC board has been talking about, and there have been some pretty exciting new things going on to address that. Can you share a little bit about how you guys as a board have begun to reach out to turfgrass managers and the public about those issues?
Well, it all comes back to, I think, basically education. The better our people in the industry, our turfgrass managers, are educated as to what goes on with the industry, and in particular, what are the benefits of turfgrass and how that relates particularly to communities and the environment in general, is going to help other people outside of the industry understand. So many times we've seen throughout the number of years where there are so many misconceptions that are mentioned and spread about turfgrass, about the benefits of turfgrass, and even, more specifically, even some of the agricultural crops and the methods that are used to raise crops. So it becomes very, very important that we become educators and also salespeople, from the standpoint that we need to be out there trying to help promote and sell the benefits of having good, healthy turfgrass in our communities and what it does for the environment. And now we go, have with a lot of the social media out there, things can spread very, very rapidly that are not based in fact at all. And that's one of the challenges we have to deal with, and we just can't back away and say, well, we know that's not true. But unless someone is able to show through data and talk, about it, that those things are not truthful that are being out there, it's going to make it very difficult for the industry to grow and thrive, and also be an important part in the environmental stewardship picture.
Absolutely. And I think something that I've been excited to watch is the VTC leadership has almost recognized some areas. Sometimes you're a little behind the curve in responding to misconceptions, but there are some that you can get ahead of. And I think that you guys have really launched some interesting initiatives to get ahead of some of those topics, really being out front with volunteering to do some environmental stewardship type of projects. The recent pollinator seed packet distribution that you guys have done through the Environmental Institute, those have been some really great ways to put your ideas out front and center. Where did those ideas come from? I mean, I'm going to just assume it was your idea that you really got those things up and running. But I'd really love to hear how you guys as a board came together to start making those things happen.
Well, I think it's a good example of how industry people working together coming from different perspectives within the industry and educating each other, come up with some pretty darn good ideas. And I believe this is one of them. A number of people are certainly aware of the the threats that are out there, things that are happening, which are not based on fact. And that's when the idea is, what can we do as an industry to help with this? There's been some projects that have been done over the years, but it started to come together as, what can we do, because we need to do more and we have to be more organized about it. Part of it was that we formed the Virginia Turfgrass Council Environmental Institute. That is a new, organization, and its function is to really support the mission and support the industry of the Virginia Turfgrass Council. Part of that is doing more on the legislative side, making sure that our legislators that are making a lot of the decisions that affect us very, very directly are aware of what the impact of some of those things are, what the needs of the industry may be, and how we can work together to be better environmental stewards. The second thing with the Environmental Institute and the way it was formed was it was set up as a 501c3 nonprofit organization. That was going to enable us to get tax deductible funds donated to us. It will enable us to go out and look at more grants to do some projects. Just here recently, in February, we did that project of planting beach grass down in Virginia Beach to help secure the dunes, that grass, get those root systems established and help protect those dunes, from erosion. We want to greatly expand that program down there and do similar things in other areas. And this will enable us to go out and get donations to help cover the cost of these projects, as well as grants that will help us, and also be able to expand our educational opportunities for the members of the Virginia Turfgrass Council and people in the industry, because the more educated everyone in the industry is, particularly with changes as they come down, will be very, very beneficial. So it was, the board kind of was, everyone's in agreement, we needed to be doing some things. And this was part of the process that they saw in their infinite wisdom that can help accomplish that and move us into the future in a good position for the industry.
You've emphasized the importance of sharing ideas and collaborating within the industry. Can you tell me, are there any people in the industry or mentors who had an impact on you in that way?
Well, it really goes back and starts with my entrance into the agricultural area, and my very first boss was tremendous influence, and taught me and taught all that he had under him an awful lot. That the importance of contributing not only to your job, but the industry as well. And that kind of carried on, and every boss I had after that had a tough measuring stick to measure up to. And fortunately, I had some of those. And I have to go back, with the Virginia Turfgrass, was my contact with them, and a person that was, very involved with it was Mr. Bob Ruff, and also his son, Bob Ruff Jr., was a golf course superintendent that gave a lot to the industry. Now, Bob Ruff Sr. Worked for a chemical distributor that was one of my customers when I started out on the ag side. And I used to go down to Roanoke, and I would ride around with Bob Ruff Sr. 2 to 3 days for a week, 1 week every month down in the Roanoke area, calling on fruit growers. And he educated me a lot about what was going on in the orchards. We would climb trees looking for those young instars of certain insects and looking for egg masses, so we could alert the grower that here's some situations you're going to have to be watching out for. and with his son got involved in the turf industry, and Bob got involved, and was always kind of pointing out things to me on that turf side. And what was interesting was the original company I was with on the ag side, Stauffer Chemical, developed had a chemistry that was used in vegetables that they found worked very well for controlling POA on bent grass golf greens. And they developed that and brought that into the marketplace, and that was their first turf product. And what I find real interesting, that company I ended up with PBI Gordon at the end, that chemistry, I was still able to promote and sell that product 40 some years later. And that was one of those, a good example of one of those transitions of chemistry coming over from the agricultural side over to the specialty, the turf side. It was just fun to see that and see it over the years, and the fact that it's still a very useful tool.
Definitely. Okay, Ray, I'm going to take a hard left. And since you're retired, I do have to ask, what are you doing with yourself? Are you sitting around pondering the days of traveling and working, or what have you got going on?
It seems now, and I've heard people say it, and I'm as busy as I've ever been. Just you get involved, and again, supporting a number of things, in your life that are important to you. I'm still involved very actively with the Alumni Association at Delaware Valley University. I think they keep me around to help them remember some of the history. I served as president of the Alumni Association, and also one of the very rewarding things was serving on the board of trustees of the school for a number of years. So I still keep my hand in there. Church always takes a fair amount of time and commitment, trying to do things there. My wife and I teach Sunday school, and every once in a while they need somebody to fill in and to deliver a message, and happy to be able to help out with that when that comes up. But a lot of my time is spent with track and field. Been involved in track and field continuously since 1965, when I was a freshman in high school. Went out for the track team, and never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that here all these years later, that I would still be as active as I am, both as an athlete, but now in particular as an official and an administrator. It has brought a lot to my life. I think it's helped with my professional career as well. And I guess as being an athlete, it helps you direct your time. You set goals. You have certain time to do it and schedule it, so you don't, as I say, I don't have a lot of time to waste to be able to get everything done. And I've been fortunate enough that track and field has taken me around the world to a number of places I know that I would have never been able to go on my own. And as a result, just like with the industry, you meet a lot of people and friends. I've met a lot of people from different countries that are involved in track and field, and they have become lifelong friends as well.
That's fantastic. Well, somewhere in an email, I saw something about you doing a triathlon where you jumped off a boat in the middle of a harbor. I mean, is that accurate? Because it sounds terrible.
Now, and the last few years, one of the things I have been doing are some triathlons, and this is in particular doing it with my daughter, my one daughter. Actually, we've had several where my wife, myself, and our two daughters have done them all together. And the one that you're specifically referring to, it's called Escape the Cape. My daughter was the one that said, "Hey, this looks like a different type of challenge, Dad. Let's do it." So we've done it several times and are scheduled to do it again this year. But it starts off, they take us out on the Cape May Lewis Ferry out of Cape May, New Jersey, out into Delaware Bay. And you start your swim by jumping off the Cape May Lewis Ferry. And I didn't realize, particularly with no cars on there, you're 13 feet up in the air when you're jumping off the bow of it to get going. And as I find out that the challenge is keeping your goggles
Oh no!
from losing them when you hit the water, because you're going to be going down a little bit before you can come up and start. And something I was also thrilled about with the triathlon with my one daughter and her family and my wife. We did a sprint triathlon together, with the grandkids. So there were 3 generations of us, competing in that. So one of my thrills early on was to be able to do some road races and things with my daughters. And now it's fun to be able to have even my grandkids, all of us in the same race. I've handed over the mantle, and the grandkids. I'm bringing up the rear, and I say, don't forget, I'll get there, but wait for me at the end.
That is awesome. I don't know if that's life goals or if it makes me concerned that I don't get to sit down and put my feet up when I when I retire. I don't know. I don't know which path is right.
I guess I've always said, I don't particularly want to stop because I don't know if I'd ever get started again. So it's easier not to stop.
You may have a point there. That's great. So you mentioned your family, and I see that you and your wife will be celebrating your 49th wedding anniversary this summer.
Yes. Yep. June 3rd. It'll be 49 years. We got married 2 weeks after I graduated, undergraduate, before I started as a full-time graduate student, going for my master's degrees. I certainly owe her a lot to the things I've been able to accomplish with my job. I was on the road a lot, and she has always been very, very supportive of what I've done, what has been important to me, and it becomes, as I say, it wasn't a job I had; it's been a lifestyle. It's all wrapped in. You're never off the clock, so to speak. There's always people that call that have issues and problems, whether it's with a clogged sprayer or whatever. That you take that time. You just it's a lifestyle. And I've been very, very fortunate that way. And now that I am officially retired from that, but I still think I'm able to contribute to the industry, and hopefully others will continue to do the same, because we have some very, very brilliant people involved in the turfgrass industry.
Absolutely. You do. So let's close on this. Knowing that you've lived this lifestyle and been in the industry and really embraced all the parts of it, while maintaining your family life, and congratulations on that upcoming 49th anniversary. What would your advice be for younger turfgrass managers and professionals about being involved in the industry, but also having a little bit of balance there with family and outside interests?
Well, I think it's very important to have balance, to have outlets, to have something that you're just not totally focused on one thing all of the time. Because I have seen people that have, gotten into that way, and they're, just 120%, 90 miles an hour, just going straight out, and you can get burnout. You have to look at, what life is all about, and certainly, family is very, very important. A lot of what we do is so that we can provide for our family. One of the things that, again, I'll go back to my very, first boss that hired me into the industry. He said, this involves the whole family. And, he not only interviewed me, but interviewed my wife, so that she had an understanding of what this career, was going to be and what it could be. And that it was a decision that we made, as a family. And I think that's very, very important. I had that in other cases, and some I didn't, where my wife was not interviewed as part of the process. But when you do a lot of the things that we have to do and the commitments, it's very, very important. But having that balance is very, very critical, and have an outlet. I'm a big proponent, of course, of staying active, which helps you with your health. And when you're healthier, you have more energy, you can accomplish more. So that's where the track and field has always been very, very important to me, fitting that in. I've been fortunate that I've done a lot of clinics, on fitness and all, over the years around the country. And a lot of times people say that, well, I just don't have time in the day, for me to work out, or I can't do that because it takes time away from my family. And the way I always put it to them, I said, that time you take each day, whether it's to exercise or work out or whatever, that's an investment in yourself. But it's your family that's going to benefit from the interest that's generated, the energy that you get, that you're going to have more time, more energy when you do things with them to be active. So they're the ones that are going to benefit by that investment that you're making in yourself, on a regular basis.
Definitely. That is great advice, Ray. Thank you again for talking to us and for everything you've done for the industry, not just with VTC, but more broadly.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and I've been blessed to be involved with this industry.
Don't miss an episode of Virginia Turfgrass. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also visit us at theturfzone.com.
You've been listening to The Turf Zone. Thank you to our sponsors, including Buy Sod, world-class service on demand. Visit us online at www.buysod.com. For more episodes of The Turf Zone, visit theturfzone.com and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app.